and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. I'm the founder, president, and chief listening officer here at our network, where we have 29 live broadcasts each and every week. Our show today is the Corner Bookstore, where we feature and spotlight authors from all over the world. My co-host and good friend Diane Floyd BOEHM has the day off today, but we've got a super fantastic guest who's going to share with us how we can change the world one story at a time. Let us welcome NATASHA DEEN. Welcome.
Hello, Dr. Jacalyn. I'm so excited to be here. And hello to the audience. Thank you for joining us.
I'm so excited to have you here as well. And I mentioned earlier that you've got a fabulous website, which we're going to be bringing up a little bit later. But there's so many dimensions to you. And just speaking to you backstage about your pets, and also I understand you love a good cup of tea, and obviously you are a phenomenal writing instructor. Tell us a little bit about what it is that inspires you to write.
Oh, that's a great question, because the truth is I'm never inspired to write. I mix up letters and numbers, and I'm a terrible speller, and writing is incredibly tough for me. I think writing is tough for a lot of us, right? The idea in our head, but getting it on the page, and then getting it to make sense on the page, then getting it to make sense in somebody else's head, right? It's this very cool sort of like literary magic trick, right? Everything that's in here is not going to be in here, but it's hard work. So it's never inspired to write for me. It's more the joy of storytelling, and my background is in psychology. And it was learning how much, like, by nature as human beings, we are storytellers, right? We come into the world and we are like telling ourselves stories, even from the moment when we're still sort of learning language, right? We're telling ourselves stories, and then as we grow, right? I love school, I hate school, I love my boss, I wish my boss would get stuck in the elevator. All of these things in the stories we tell ourselves is what sets ourselves up for trying things, persevering through things, our resiliency, maybe never trying things because we tell ourselves, oh, that'll never be for me, I can't do it, all those kinds of things. So what inspires me to, or I guess the better word is motivates me. What motivates me to come into the office and sit for hours and days and years at a time working on a story when it's just fighting for every single word is the idea of making somebody's day better. And the joy of, that feeling when you sit down and you lose yourself in a book, like you forget time, you forget your bus stop, dinner's burning, like all those kinds of, the idea of being the person who tells you a story that so engages and captures your heart and your mind, and then at the end of it makes you feel grateful. Like I'm glad I spent time in those pages. I am glad I read this book. That's the motivation.
Thank you so much for your transparency and sharing that with us. And when you think about the target audience, I know you write for kiddos and young adults as well as adults. Do you feel that a work that is for specifically 5 to 10-year-olds is still relevant for adults as well?
Oh, absolutely. When we think about writing for kids and teens, sometimes there's this idea that writing for a younger audience is somehow easier, and it's really not. You're very restricted with word count, vocabulary, and especially with the littles. I mean, for anyone who's writing for small children, you are teaching them how to read. You are teaching them the writing fundamentals. What's a simile? What's a metaphor? All those kinds of things. But the stories, like a good story is a good story. My favorite story, I'm almost 50, my favorite story still remains The Little Engine That Could, which is a picture book, right? But everything about that story lifts me up and inspires me and encourages me. So yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I think is really interesting, so when we look at YA, we think, oh yes, okay, for 12 to 18-year-olds. But the primary readership for young adult novels, and for emerging writers, this is something to keep in mind. The primary readership, the biggest readers for young adult, are adult women. So women in their 20s and 30s are the main consumers of young adult fiction. And when you ask yourself why, I mean, when we think about stories for young people, what are we talking about? We're talking about stories that explore topics of identity and agency and independence and interdependence. And these are always stories that sort of center around, I am bigger than whatever the world is pushing back at me, right? Whatever the obstacles are, I am bigger than that. And I think that's a message, I think, for all of us, no matter our age. And I think that's why adults are still particularly drawn to stories for young people.
I absolutely love your passion, Natasha. Your whole face lights up, and I can just see that positive energy pouring out of you.
Thank you.
And
I am kind of a chatterbox with it, so.
No, it's good. It's perfect. And you mentioned backstage about your pets. Tell our audience about your comment you shared about your pets.
Oh, that when I'm not writing, I spend an inordinate amount of time trying to convince my pets that I'm the boss of the house. And to date, my friends, I have never won once. Not once. Not once. They think I'm adorable, but no.
Tell us about your pets. What do you have?
We have a 15-year-old cat. He's a Norwegian forest cat named Remus, named after the Roman emperor, not the Harry Potter character. And an 8-year-old Siberian Husky, German Shepherd, and Australian Sheepdog mix named Gracie. And they are just, I mean, this is the joy when you work from home, and this is the joy of being a writer, is that your coworkers are your furry buddies. And they are amazing, by the way, timekeepers. They know exactly when snack time is. They know exactly when lunchtime is. They know exactly when nap time is. And they are very good about keeping me on that particular schedule to make sure I don't. So I've never missed a snack. I've never missed a cookie in my life, thanks to my partners there in crime.
I love it. And for people who are on the radio, they can't see that you have a beautiful book cover behind you. Can you please bring that to light, the forefront, so we can see it?
Sure. So this is my latest YA novel, and it's called The Signs and Wonders of Tuna, Rashad. And it's all about an aspiring screenwriter who has the summer to win over her crush and also to help her brother move through his grief after losing his spouse. And she's got to do it all by the end of summer. And because Tuna is Caribbean, Guyanese specifically, she adheres to the ancestors' teachings, which is that our ancestors watch over us and they send us signs and omens to let us know that they are there watching and protecting us and engaged with us and loving us, even though they're not with us physically. So the fun part of the book is Tuna sort of searching out for these signs and getting help from her ancestors, including some particularly crotchety aunts that she's not quite sure want her success, but she's hoping for it.
I love it. We do have a comment from someone on Facebook. Our fur babies are our muses too.
Oh, that, you know what? That is so well said. And they're such a comfort, aren't they? Like, you know, I just sort of think about, like, whenever I'm sitting and writing, and I have on the desk, I have the blanket and Remus, and we just lost our buddy Gussie. He was also 15. But they would sleep on the desk with me, right? And they were sort of always there. And I have all these photos that I keep with me of, I've got my hands on the keyboard and Gussie's paw is just over my wrist, because he's just sort of like holding my hand as I'm doing this. And it's so lovely, right? When we're struggling, because writing can be such a lonely, isolating experience, and we're by ourselves, we're with the voices in our head trying to be like, okay, one at a time. And there are our dudes just sort of hanging with us and not saying a word, but just like keeping us company. And it's so lovely and it's so encouraging. And yeah, absolutely, it is musical, because definitely for me, it definitely keeps me in my chair, because if I get up and move, they move with me. And when they sleep, they look so like gosh darn cute. I don't want to disturb them. So I sit there going, okay, I'm really frustrated, but I'm going to keep doing this,
So cute. We also have a follow-up comment. Love the theme of the book. So we don't know who you are, Facebook user. If you want to put your name down, that would be great. And if not, we understand that as well. So, Natasha, how important is the cover to draw someone
Oh,
in?
you know what? It's important. I mean, some of my favorite books, and I won't name them because I don't ever want to sound like I'm taking a hit at the cover artists. But some of my favorite books have the world's worst covers on them. When I just think, why? Why did you do this to this amazing story? But yeah, covers, because they give us a sense of what is between these pages and what might be going on. And you know, when you think of like mystery or thriller, and like the dark sort of broody covers, you know, where or the horror ones, you can just sort of, you just look at the picture and you know, the hair on the back of your neck starts prickling up. And I'm so grateful because Tuna is with Running Press Kids, and her counterpart, which is in the Key of Nira Ghani, which came out in 2019, was also with them, and they've just done such a beautiful job with the covers. Like you've seen the Tuna cover, and then Nira is both in hardcover and paperback. And this is the paperback, and it's these lovely little details, right? Like the cutout of her trumpet matching, you know, being basically the background of the cover. And I think covers are they're what catches our eye, right? We go in and then we delve into the pages of the book. But I also give love to bad covers, because that is not the story's fault. So I will always even read the back, right? Because we do not judge books by their cover. So
Ah, yes, well said. And it's Ann O'Connell. Hi, Ann. Nice to have you with us. The reason why your picture isn't showing up, because she wrote that, is because you're probably in a private Facebook group, Dr. Jacalyn's Health and Wellness, and you have to give permission for them to show your picture. So there you have it. So, Natasha, for people who are new authors, they're not published yet, they want to be published. What are your thoughts about hiring someone to do the cover art, as opposed to maybe going to one of these websites where you can get a cover for $5 or $7? Does it really matter? What are your thoughts?
I think it matters. I don't know very much about the $5 covers, but my immediate thought is you're going to get what you pay for. A graphic designer, like someone who's going to design your cover for you, I think, and you know what, maybe costs have changed. You know, the last time I was doing it, I think it was about 250 to 500, depending on who it was you were using. But their work is going to speak for itself. It's going to look really sharp, really clean. It's going to look professional. It's going to look beautiful. And if you're going to take the route of self-publishing over the route of traditional publishing, you know, you are now in both routes, you are your business of one, right? And you need to have a business head, and you need to understand what the expenses are. And so if you're going to do the self-publishing route, invest in a really good book cover artist, invest in a really good editor, like invest in that. Because you know, even if you're thinking to yourself, well, I've got this background and I'm a really good writer and I know grammar. Yes, but you're also deeply connected to your story. So there's no objectivity. I mean, we like to think we are, but we're not. We're not. So a professional editor is a person who's going to come in, they're going to read it sort of cold and point out all the soft spots that your book is going to need. Maybe there's a deepening of character, maybe the plot needs to be tightened. But you know that, you know, and again, I'm guessing on prices, but you know, from what I'm thinking is like $300 to $600 for a professional editor. Better to spend the money, get it from them, work on your craft, polish that manuscript, than to send it out into the world and get like a stream of really bad reviews, or people saying, I don't know what the story's about, you lost me. Because that's, you know, for all the money that people spend on marketing and promotion, at the end of the day, one of the biggest sort of like sales pitches, sales things that we can do is write a really, really good book, because word of mouth counts, right? And we know this. We know this because we have people who say to us, "Oh, have you read this book lately?" Or, "Oh my gosh, you've got to read this book." Or, "Oh, gross! That book is on the New York Times. Like, it's so terrible." And so, you know, those are things that we want to be aware of when we're moving into the world as writers.
Great points that you made there. We also have a comment. Great advice on cover design. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So you touched on something I think is so relevant, and as a new author might not even think about this. Writing can produce, once you're published, you can get an income. You can possibly retire from whatever else it is you're doing, and you actually have a full-fledged business. But many times people don't think about this. Maybe they start off as writing as a hobby. So can you share a little bit with our audience who's thinking to themselves, well, I never thought about, I could be I can make a business out of writing. It could be not just my passion, but my income.
Yeah, those are great questions. And if this is something you're considering, you want to ask yourself things like, do I want it to be a full-time business or do I want it to be a part-time business? Because how you approach is going to be different. If you're looking to say full-time, then okay, if you're going to make it full-time, what is your time arc on this? How are you going to, manage your expenses in order to make this full-time? So are you going to start, writing in magazines and doing short stories with the view to like, getting those credits and getting that establishment and then moving into novel writing? And it's the same, like you got to think about expenses. You've got to think about the expenses right now. Luckily, everything is digital, so that's really nice. But there's still sometimes where you're gonna have to be printing things off. So even small things like how much are ink cartridges? How about paper, printers? Are you going to invest yourself in writing apps like Scrivener or Plotter? How are you going to organize yourself? How are you going to set yourself up for success? And also with these big goals, right? I'm going to write this novel and it's going to have 300 pages. And by, in a year, I'm going to have this novel written and polished. And, September 1st, 2023, it's going to hit the bookshelves. Wonderful. How are you going to take that very big goal and break it into small, manageable pieces? Are you going to write a page a day? Are you going to write for 15 minutes a day? It's also really important, if you want to set yourself up for success, to be realistic about what your current obligations are. If you're working full time right now in another job, where are you going to find, are you going to get up early and write for half an hour before you start your routine to go to work? Are you going to take your lunch hour instead? Are you going to write for half an hour, after work is done? For me, I found it had to be either at lunchtime or, before work started, because at the end of the day, I spent 8 hours staring at a computer and coming home to stare at a computer. I did not have the energy for that. And even now as a full-time writer, I'm first thing in the morning, because that's when I have the most energy. That's when I'm the most creative. That's when I'm the most productive. And then all the other business things are going to come into play.
Thanks for sharing that. That's really valuable information. And what about getting the audience, getting the public, creating awareness before you actually publish the book? How important is this to have some teasers out there, maybe some cover reveals, whatever you might do on social media to let people know something is coming?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you do want to have some kind of social media presence. So definitely a website. And again, look at your budgets. WordPress, there's free website templates that you can use. Wix, Wix comes to mind as another server, and yeah, another company that has like free options as well. So you want to have a website where you're going to have an about me page, events, coming soon /books, or news, and then a contact me, because, if there's libraries or schools or different writing organizations that want to be able to talk to you about your books or book clubs, you want them to be able to easily access you. So having that website, yes, absolutely. from there, it's really about where your comfort level is, and with social media, the sort of chaotic thing about social media is there's always new apps coming out, right? So back in the day, there was, MySpace, and then Facebook, and then Facebook and Twitter, and then Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And now there's like TikTok, and like, it just blows up. And it's not productive to try to be on every single one necessarily. So for most writers, you're going to want to pick a few. Like, I'm primarily Twitter with occasionally on Instagram. But the thing I try to remind myself is that my primary job is to write. So that's one of the reasons. I don't want to have to spend a whole day going from one, social media account to the other, trying to come up with different content for all of these things. I will say Hootsuite, Hootsuite. That's a place where you can sort of get all of your social media in one spot, and then you can schedule out when you want to, post. So there are like management things for that. And then work with different bloggers or influencers and look at things like cover reveals, teasers. If you're comfortable with having a blog yourself, that's a great place. Start documenting your journey. Start documenting whatever it is you want to document, right? Because then people have content to come back to. And then the other side of it too, I'm going to say this too, is like, also be aware where your priorities are, because you can spend a lot of time on this, but if you haven't spent enough effort and care and attention and focus and patience on your books, because it's not, I'm going to write this and then I'm done. It's, you're going to write this and then you're going to rewrite it and then you're going to rewrite it, because that's the job of a professional writer, is to have that draft and then work on it until it is accessible to the audience that they're aiming for. So if you don't put in that effort, it doesn't matter what you do over here, your book is not going to catch traction. We always come back to it, at least for myself, as a writer, your primary goal, write the really good book, put the effort into it, and then this stuff is the it's like the frosting on the cake, but you need the cake. You really need the cake.
Thank you. As an extension to what you just shared, I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about a full-time author actually having a business plan?
A full-time author does need a business plan, absolutely, because you really are a business of one. You're going to be the writer, you're going to be your promoter, you're going to be your marketer, you're going to be a research assistant, you're going to be like every single thing, and also your events assistant as well, right? So technology can be really helpful. Use your reminders, use the calendars. All those things, set them up to like bump up if you've got to remind yourself about certain things that's coming in a week, make sure you set that reminder for a week before. And then also, like, the thing that there's a reality of being a writer, and then there's the fantasy of being a writer. And the fantasy that we are taught from Hollywood is that it is this really lovely, gentle job, right? And we have all of these images of these writers that wake up in the morning and they're, in these beautiful locations where they're looking out onto these gorgeous vistas, and they're drinking their coffee, and, inevitably they're in a cardigan with like leather, some kind of leather sleeve, and or elbow patch, and then they go to their office, which is also equally gorgeous, and they sit down to this typewriter, and then the words just flow. And that is, I don't know any author, and I know a lot of authors, I don't know any author that is, it is a grind. You're going to get up early, and I think Agatha Christie said it best, right? That she became a professional writer when she was writing when she didn't want to, when she didn't like what she was writing, and when she knew she wasn't writing well. And I love that, because none of that has anything to do with being published, winning awards. It was like her mindset. I'm doing this even though I don't want to do this. And that's part of the business plan, right? Part of your business plan is, how much is it going to cost for equipment? Part of your business plan is, promotions and marketing and planning. I mean, listen, for those of us out there who want to be full-time writers and want to be successful at it, if you are successful at it, you will be asked to attend festivals and to do writing in residences and, you know, visit this organization and go to this place. And you know, all of that is going to take time from your writing. So this Hollywood idea that someone's going to sit at their computer and work all day into the late hours is lovely, but it is not realistic. And again, you know, that business plan needs to acknowledge your time, right? So again, be aware of these things and be honest about them, right? Don't set goals that you're going to have to stop sleeping and showering and eating to meet. It's not realistic or kind to yourself.
Excellent point. Self-care is really key. As an author myself, I found that this community of authors is really very supportive. And unlike other
Mhm.
industries, when I was in my corporate role, a lot of competition, a lot of backstabbing. Do you ever feel any concern whatsoever? You mentioned, you know, a lot of authors that maybe you'll share a story and someone will take that story and run with it.
No. No, because like, listen, there's only so many stories that are out there. They've all been told, right? So I don't worry about that at all because the writer's voice is all about how we view the world, what we think we can accomplish, what we think the world has to offer. You know, our past experiences, our hopes, all of these things come in to how we create characters. How we view the world comes into how we create characters and how we create plot. And you know, in the classes that I teach, so I teach for the University of Toronto's School of Continuing Studies, and I teach an introduction to children's writing. Um, but in those classes and in writing workshops that I do as well, you know, there's always a writing prompt to kind of like start the day. So it's this person that walks into this room and hears these things that happen. And what you find is even if someone is given the same story idea, like a group of people, they're all going to write different stories. Even if we have like two characters who both go into the woods and meet a wolf, it still diverges because that is the joy and the magic of storytelling is that no one ever tells the same story. So no, I don't worry about that at all.
I already knew that answer, but I just wanted to put it out there for people who are thinking, well, I don't want to talk to any other authors because I'm not sure what they're going to do with my idea. But you're right. The stories have been told and then they get retold in a different
Mhm.
perspective, a different point of view. And that's what really keeps it exciting. So we talked a little bit about your pets. What else is it that you do for your self care in order to keep yourself going?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, come back because I was gonna say when we were talking, you made a really great point about writers being afraid to interact with other writers, but that's actually part of the business plan, right? Like you want to know other writers, you want to network with other writers because they can be your critique partners. They can help you sort your work before you go and pay that editor the hundreds of dollars to make sure your work is now marketable and saleable. But also the network of your writers are there. They're going to support you. They're going to encourage you. And, you know, the more people you know within the industry, the more business opportunities you can learn about. So you can find out about this contest or this publisher that's looking for this person or this agent who is, you know, looking for this kind of story that, oh my gosh, you just happen to be writing. So it's a really great way to be efficient about getting knowledge from the industry is to have that band of writing siblings. But then to go to your question about self-care, I hilariously, I don't know if it's gonna make sense. I try to treat every day like my birthday. So I try to find little things I can do to celebrate the day. Whether and certain things like at the end of the day, I really love milk and cookies before I go to bed. I feel like that's such a treat. Making sure I get 8 hours of sleep, making sure that I'm eating healthy because you know when we get to a certain age, sugar and all those things, right? It's not that I don't indulge or have fun, but I'm also cognizant that, you know, one glass of wine, cool. Three, I'm going to wake up with a really bad headache tomorrow. So maybe no, right? So yeah. And then, you know, just, yeah, finding those moments to celebrate, finding the moments where I can celebrate my sense of accomplishment because writing is such a long process, right? And for those of you who may not know, at the point in time you get a contract. So let's say you land a contract today. your book is not going to see the light of day. It's like not going to end up on a shelf until 2 years from now. So September 2024 is probably when you're going to see your book on the shelf, because there's all of these books before you, and there's an entire process that has to go in front of you before you see it, which is, again, when you're thinking about what it is you want to do, that goal setting, right? Do you want to be able to get your book out on the shelf in time for Christmas? Then self-publishing. Are you okay waiting for those couple of years? Then yeah, maybe the traditional route. But because it can be such a long haul, I always kind of try to come back to the sense of accomplishment. I wrote when I didn't want to, or look at that, I got the 5 pages in. And then I try to find, again, those ways to like celebrate. So some days it's, I'm staying the whole day in my pajamas because there ain't nobody I gotta see, and this is gonna be a fun thing for me to do. Or, I'm taking the day and I'm gonna like sit down with a giant bowl of popcorn and a lot of chocolate, and I'm gonna do nothing but watch like, British mysteries on PBS and Acorn, and I'm gonna like, nerd out on all of it. So I try, for all those things. And then in the big moments, of course, we celebrate, but it's always trying to celebrate ourselves, and it's being flexible, right? Just because today I wrote 1,000 words doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to be a day where I can write 1,000 words. Tomorrow might be a day that's really ends up being really administratively heavy. So let me adjust my goals accordingly, because that is a way we self-care for ourselves, right? Don't hold ourselves to like that one standard, because that's gonna break, right? The flexibility is what's gonna get us through.
I'm loving this. The pajamas, watching whatever you want, eating the cookies and drinking the milk. It sounds
I know. It's
fabulous.
like, is it Friday yet? Is it?
Well, Natasha, before we run out of time, I would love to have you read from the 2 books that you referenced there. Would you be able to do that for us?
Yes, absolutely. So let's do Tuna. So super quick. So Tuna, so her older brother Robbie lost his husband suddenly. And Robbie is sort of drowning in this grief spiral. And the problem is Robbie's pulling the whole family into it. So they don't have photos of David, his husband. There's no photos. No one talks about David. So the family can't grieve. And in Tuna, what I was trying to explore was the different ways we grieve and the different ways grief can pull us together and push us apart. So this is so Robbie has come over for dinner, and Tuna is seeing that her brother is cracking under the sadness, and she desperately wants to help him. So this is chapter 3, and this is how it goes. The movie is more terrible than I imagined, and that's saying a lot, because my whole life is imagination, and my professional career will be about imagination. I sit watching a screenplay that shoves characters into scenarios for the sake of driving the plot forward, and a main character who is so stereotypical and cardboard, she takes my breath away. Okay. So it's entirely possible that my anxiety over the picture frame hidden under my bed is affecting my ability to judge the movie properly. And also, I feel bad judging the movie negatively. Screenplays and films are no easy task, but it's someone's dream come true, and I shouldn't be tossing sewage on it. I count down the minutes until the credits roll and spend most of my time thinking about all the things I do to listen and follow the ancestors. Am I honoring my heritage, or is Robbie right? Am I just superstitious? But as I scroll through the mental list, everything seems solidly in the respect your heritage pile. Don't step over people who are sitting on the floor. Broken mirrors bring 7 years of bad luck. When stacking books, always ensure the religious texts are on top. Careful how you speak of the dead, because they will hear you and come to you. Honor the images and possessions of those who've gone before you, which, dang it, triggers anxiety and the wild guilt over the frame. As soon as the screen fades to black, I hop up from the chair, babble something about needing a bathroom, and race upstairs. I close the bedroom door, then I'm sitting on the floor, lifting my duvet and gently pulling out the frame that holds the collage. Along the edges are butterflies made of metallic paper and paint, and even under the ceiling light, they glow with intricate beauty. The most gorgeous ones are the ones that Mom made, but mine aren't too bad. I check each of them, from the monarchs to the multicoloreds to the bright blue morphos. I double check each, ensuring their wings didn't suffer. Butterflies. Did I love them first, or did he make me love them? I wipe the glass with the hem of my dress and made contact with the image of David. Strong, wonderful, gentle David, with the black hair and the smile. Sorry, bro, I say, but you of all people know how he can be. He's barely keeping it together. Seeing you, I stop. Because seeing David's photo is one thing. Seeing David and thinking about him in connection with Robbie is an entire thing. I hold the frame and take in the photos one at a time. The two of them on their first day in pre-K, where Robbie told me it was love at first sight. And I traced the image of their wedding day, their matching rings, and how weird it was to have a couple of kids marry right after high school, but how it seemed totally fitting because it was David and Robbie, and they would be together forever because they were one of the great love stories of all time. He's struggling, I say to the picture, and I don't know how to help him. None of us knows. He's here all the time, and that's great, but I hear David finish the thought, but he's over for the wrong reasons. I nod. I have to do something. I put the picture back on the dresser and open the door to let in the evening air. The leaves of the tree outside rustle, and as I start to turn away, I see it. A monarch butterfly flitting between the branches. I hold my breath and exhale as it comes to rest on the windowsill. Hey, you're my confirmation, huh? David agrees. The butterfly does a slow flap of its wings and disappears into the leaves. I go back downstairs, take the empty popcorn bowls and candy packages upstairs. Robbie's loading the dishwasher. Do you need a heating pad? I shift around Mom and hand Dad the candy, and to Robbie, I say, I will give you the rest of Dad's cheesecake if you never again bring up my uterus. Because she had run upstairs telling him she had her period because she was trying to get the picture away so he wouldn't see it. And then they go on, they volley about it. And she says, after Robbie leaves, I head to my room, then freeze in the doorway. Grandma's quilt is back on the bed. Did you bring up the quilt? I yelled the question down the stairs. No, Mom's voice comes my way. Robbie must have left it downstairs. But he didn't. He came into my room to put it back. My gaze lifts from the bed to the dresser, which means he saw the collage. I step into my room, positive I'll hear the echoes of his wailing grief, but meet only the soft swish of my bare feet on carpet. The frame's been moved. Not a lot, but enough to confirm that Robbie touched it. Robbie touched something that held the image of David. If that's not an omen, then omens don't exist. I set the frame back into its original position and acknowledge the sign to my ancestors and David, and I promise them and myself that I will do all I can to help Robbie remember how to smile and laugh, and maybe love again. Thank you.
Wow, I was following along with all these emotions as I was listening to you read. That was really drew me in.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for the chance to share a little bit of Tuna's story. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We do have maybe 3 minutes left if you want to read something else.
Sure. So Tuna's for older readers, but the Spooky Sleuth series just came out with Penguin, and I love the series. It's sort of X-Files meets Goosebumps for young readers. So Awesome has just moved to Lionsgate, Washington, and it's a creepy town where there's always fog and people disappear into the fog and there's flying stuff in the sky that hovers, and he's sure that there are supernatural creatures running around, but he meets Rockshar, and Rockshar is very science-based, and she thinks that the weird goings on are because the science lab has experiments that are running wild. And so in this book, what happens is the class goes to the cemetery to do like some nature studies, and Awesome notices this tree that doesn't look quite normal. And he and Rockshar decide that they're gonna sort through it and see what's going on. It's a really great book because it uses a scientific method to sort of sort through things. The other thing I really love about this book is that Awesome and Rockshar, even though they disagree with each other, they are never disagreeable, and they're always open to the possibility that the other person might be correct. And also for the young readers in your life, it's lovely because there's no answer given at the end. So it's up to readers to decide if it was spooky or if it lands. So super quick, because I don't want to be disrespectful of the time. This is Awesome's first experience with the tree. It says, inside the cemetery, the fog was thick. I wanted to run away, but I couldn't see the exit or my bag. No way had that kid thrown it that far. Where was it? I stepped on a bramble. It wriggled. I yelped, then tripped on another one. It squealed and cracked like a broken bone. I ran for where I thought the exit should be. Instead, I got lost. The wind cried and swept the fog away, and I was in the middle of the graveyard. The trees in the section were dead. No leaves. Their bark was split as though something big and menacing had sharpened its claws in their trunks. Time to leave. I turned, and that's when I saw it. A living tree in the middle of all the dead ones. It stood 6 feet tall, thick, with dark green leaves in the shape of tears. The soil around the tree was black and wet, but the grass was dead and brown. My breakfast rolled in my stomach as the smell of the mold wafted my way. It seemed as though there was a face in the tree staring at me. A prickle of unease skittered up my spine. Everything in this area was dead, except the tree. It was strong and growing, almost as if it had fed off all of the others. I took a cautious step backwards. It was silly, but I didn't want to turn my back on the tree. My ears pricked as a sound came behind me. Who's there? I called. A twig snapped, and I looked over my shoulder. I was alone. The wind blew, and the tree branches started creaking. My chest tightened. Hello? I raised my voice. The living tree's leaves rustled, tangling into each other, and formed the shape of a skull. A shiver ran through me. I turned and ran. Something reached out and grabbed me. So that is The Ghost Tree, and Penguin released it in simultaneously with the second book in the series, which is Beware the Moonlight. So if you have a young reader, if you love spooky stories, these are pretty fun. Thank you.
Well done. Just in time for Halloween as well.
Yeah, exactly. It worked out well.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you, and I really appreciate what you shared today for our viewers, our listeners, and also for me. And I hope you'll come back and see us again.
Would love to. Thank you so much for having me on, and to our audience, thank you for spending time with us as well. This was a lot of fun, and I look forward to the next time.
Thank you, Natasha. Before you go, I'm going to spotlight you. We have your banner, but for people who are listening on the radio, or maybe they're listening later on a podcast platform, what's the best way to reach out to you, to contact you, and who would you like to do so?
Sure. If you want to reach out to me, just go to my website, www.natashadeen.com, and there's a contact page. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter, and my handle is @Natasha_Dean.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.
See you later. Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. I say this all the time, but I really appreciate whether you're watching or listening on the live or the replay. It doesn't matter. We're just grateful. We're all about education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. We're coming right back with our next show, which is the Film and Music Show. If you're over on our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio, please do click subscribe. And also, I'd appreciate if you would follow me on my personal YouTube channel, which is Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. And I teach a lot of wonderful things about listening, elevated listening, and a number of our shows are also streamed there live as well. All right, thank you again. I'll be back with Madeline Chan momentarily and our very special guest. Bye for now.